Hello, I'm all scruffy today for this edition of my bookshelf tour. We are into the P's, and for P's for me, that means you're going to have to hit Pratchett. And to be honest, this might not be so much a bookshelf tour as just me talking about the books of Terry Pratchett. He is, let me rest my elbow here because I'm going to need to. He is best known for his Discworld series, which I actually, there's a lot of different advice on his 30 plus, maybe almost 40 Discworld books. I'm not an expert, so, you know. But yeah, I started out with The Color of Magic. The Color of Magic, which I have kind of a ratty, what's like probably an American cover of The Color of Magic, where uh, Rincewind ends up being settled with Two Flower, a naive insurance salesman turned tourist who comes to the Discworld city of Ankh-Morpork, which is basically the the giant megatropolis, New York, London, of this world, which is it started out in these books as parody, as just sort of strictly, it was Terry Pratchett, I think, making fun of all the fantasy tropes. The Starting off with Discworld itself, it's a world that doesn't really actually follow. It's got magic physics, so it's a flattened disc. Flat Earthers rejoice, that is on the back of a turtle. And what does the turtle rest on? Well, it's turtles all the way down. Actually, no, I think this turtle flies through space, which, like around the sun. Apparently, the sun is just a little thing that just orbits around Discworld. Um, so yes, these are the first books, The Color of Magic, which here, let me show you a proper English cover, which is the corgi covers, which are just riots of caricature and expression with the magical uh, sentient chest with 1,000 legs that comes running around, and you better watch out because if it swallows you, that's it. You're dead. It's got huge wooden teeth as well, so it's not going to be a pleasant death. These are very manic slapstick books at the beginning. He is definitely, it's like the young author, and there's maybe not that more of a hint of sort of manic Monty Python, Douglas Adams in him. And I think that Douglas Adams is important because Pratchett, as he goes along, is definitely a guy of ideas. He takes fantasy and rigorously deconstructs it as he goes along. The Late Fantastic, the next book is more of Rincewind and Two Flower and their adventures. Rincewind actually has never particularly been a character that I enjoyed that much. He was okay, but he's a coward, and the wizards in general, not so much my thing. Now, what happened with the series is, as it went along, um, it stayed in the world of Discworld, but unlike a lot of fantasy novels that would just follow the same chosen one through long, interminable adventures that would finally kind of just fizzle out and everyone would have lost interest. Pratchett had the brilliant idea of getting bored with Rincewind pretty quickly, or at least saying, like, there's much more to actually explore here in this world. So you get segments of Discworld books. So you get books that are focused on death, for example, Mort. This is Death comes to us all. When he came to Mort, he offered him a job. After being assured being dead was not compulsory, Mort accepted. Actually, was it? Okay, now I'm trying to remember whether it was Mort or Reaper Man, because Reaper Man is indeed actually talking about Death himself, where it's like Death is missing, presumed or gone. It's sort of Death decides to take a holiday, and all the consequences it has in a world where Death has to come to claim your soul, and so people stop dying, and There's the death of there's all the other sub deaths, including the death of Rats, who is a little cowled rat skeletal rat figure with a little mini sides and all that. We also get books. Another major thing is the guards thing. This is with the Captain Vimes, the captain of the Ankh-Morpork police, burgeoning Ankh-Morpork police. And in these books, it becomes almost like murder. There's like murder mysteries in these books. So we start shifting into different genres. You get stuff like Jingo, which is about is a political book about jingoism in the between kind of various worlds. Actually, I think this one might even take place on a different continent. No, actually, this is Ankh-Morpork again, but Discworld goes to war with armies of sardines, warriors, fishermen, squid, and at least one very camp follower. It's also a series where you get the witches are actually a really great part of the series. The weird sisters with Granny Og and yes, what is it? It's yes, Granny Weatherwax. And so you get actually kind of at the beginning of his career, Pratchett, which is like in the 80s, Pratchett was not that great at female characters, but as he went along, he actually began to create kind of vivid and interesting female characters and elderly characters, elderly women characters. He also has done did a series, kind of a sub branch from the Witches books, all about Tiffany Aching, a young female witch. Well, she doesn't start off as a witch, but she basically starts off as she's an intelligent little girl who has that very Pratchett way of looking at things and going, well, why do you do that? That doesn't really seem to make any sense. It's like, well, it's just tradition. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't really make any sense. And actually, those I think are some of his favorite books are him writing books for a young female protagonist, which can kind of show you the good stuff. But he also has books. He's got books like Going Postal, which is all about the kind of a postal service for Discworld, for Ankh-Morpork. You've got stuff on the kind of the monetary system, making money, about kind of those kind of concerns. He has one that is is kind of like a war novel with monstrous regimes where there's a major subplot which is a young woman dressing as a man going to war, and the really interesting developments there. You get The Last Hero, which is kind of earlier stuff. This is a gigantic thing, which is more I bought for. It's a Discworld fable. It's much more of a it's gorgeously got like all these giant illustrations. I guess I bought it because I'm a fan. It's not really the essential stuff. I think he's one of these guys that his humor, his pointed, sharp, dissecting humor, fueled with like a lot of kind of outrage at exactly how this world works, is where it goes. I mean, and I've really only kind of done the surface of fear. Actually, one of the lesser, what I think is a lesser book, is Good Omens, which is a book that he did with Terry Pratchett, which I feels like kind of was a fun exercise, but it was two guys doing guitar riffs that I don't think maybe did either one of them much in the way of favors, but is a favorite with a lot of other people. He also did little series called Johnny Only You Can Save Mankind. It's the Johnny and the Dead series, which I just read like the earliest one, which is like one from the 80s, which is all about a little kid who's playing video games, and one day the video game, it's all about shooting the aliens and killing the aliens. And one day the aliens say, "Could you please not kill us? Please stop. please stop. And it's a whole kind of meditation set on the backdrop of, I think, the first Gulf War about, um, why do we kill, and why do we drive enjoyment from killing, which I think is a good little hint there to kind of Terry Pratchett's kind of way of thinking. Um, I'm not as much into his later books. I feel like his later books, there's a bit of a drop off in quality, which I think actually with any author, he had an amazing run. I find kind of the early books, the late Fantastic and the Color of Magic they're okay. They're all right. They start getting better and better, and then he just has a amazing run over like 20 or 30 of these novels of just coming up with um, interesting characters, uh, amazing plots that I'm not quite sure exactly how he constructs them. They're ones that I don't even know exactly how they seem to effortlessly cohere. They start not cohering in the later books. He did suffer from Alzheimer's at the end of his life, but I prefer to think that hopefully he just had his natural run as an author, and you get to a certain point and you you can maybe be forgiven about running out of gas. And who knows, maybe I'll go back to some of those later books, none of those of which I actually bothered to keep, and maybe I'll have a different point of view. It's one of those things that I do think at some point I will just start going through Terry Pratchett books just for pure enjoyment of the delight of this man's intelligence and humor. So I think I will stop there with just one author, but uh, a lot of enjoyment, a lot of books. So yeah, that's my Pratchett section of my library tour.